Hey there, this is Vicki Arsenault, and you're listening to another episode of Facing Your Fears. Okay, today we're going to talk about how to become the hero of your story. Now, I'm talking about your life story because I think sometimes we spend a lot of time being a supporting character in everybody else's life story, and we forget to take the time to just be the main character in our own lives. You might find yourself just going through the motions day to day, going to work, making food, getting the kids ready, blah, 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 going through everything, and feeling a little bit empty inside or discouraged because you realize that you're not actually living up to your own potential. You're not pursuing your own dreams and your own destiny because you're too busy supporting everybody else. So I want you to become the main character or the hero in your own life story. Now, a hero is a person that usually is like admired for the great deeds that they've done, or they have some kind of qualities about them that people look up to. When we were kids, we all had some hero that we looked up to and we wanted to be just like them, right? Because there were things that they did or ways that they carried themselves or something that we just really liked and we wanted to be just like that. Well, I want to help you create your own kind of character and recognize your own amazing qualities in yourself so that you can admire yourself and pursue the things that you want to pursue in life. Now think about a movie. I love watching movies. And here is the basic breakdown of how a movie works. There's always a main character at the beginning that is introduced to you. And at some point pretty early on, you find out that this main character wants something. Throughout the whole movie, this person is pursuing that something. And then at the end of the movie, they have kind of acquired that thing that they were chasing after. So think about this. Now, imagine that you're watching a movie and there's a girl. It opens up to her baking some food in her kitchen. And she's chatting with her friend and they're talking about how awesome it would be if she could just start her own bakery because everybody loves her baked goods. So already we've introduced the person and we've had a conversation now that's happened that tells us that she actually desires to own her own bakery. So then the next things that are going to happen are all the obstacles in the way that are preventing her from starting this bakery. And so she has to try to figure out how she's going to get this bakery to happen. And almost every time there's like a contest of some sort where if she enters the contest and she wins, then she's going to have enough money to actually start that bakery. So she goes about entering the contest, figuring out which baked good she's going to actually enter. And usually something happens along the way, like maybe she ran out of ingredients in the middle of the contest, or something didn't get delivered that was supposed to, or something in the kitchen breaks down and she's not able to use the oven or the mixer or something like that, right? Something happens. But then at the very last second, something comes through and she's able to actually finish it right at the very last second before the judges, push the buzzer that you have to stop. And lo and behold, she ends up winning and she's able to go on and start her bakery, right? So that's the basic gist of a storyline. Pretty much any movie that you watch is going to be the same thing. Now I've probably ruined movies for you, but if you start paying attention to that, that's what you're going to see. The beginning of it sucks you in because you see there's a person that is pursuing something and you spend the next 2 hours watching them pursue it and overcome obstacles in order to get the happy ending at the end. Well, that's kind of how it is in our own lives. We are living like a live movie, and you have things that you want to pursue. And sometimes there are some obstacles in the way that prevent you from doing it. But also, I mean, on a smaller scale, we come across obstacles in our lives all the time, and we constantly have happy endings over those things. So maybe you were in school and you had this test. It was like a final exam, and you needed to pass this final exam, or you were going to fail this class and you're not going to graduate. And so you stay up studying and studying and studying. And then you take the test and you end up passing it with like a whatever, a 70, and a 65 would have failed you. You got a 70 and you passed by the skin of your teeth, but who cares? You passed, right? And you get to graduate. That's a win, right? That's the story of, here's a person that has a problem. Here's what they did to try to solve the problem. They overcome the obstacles, and then they pass the test. Even if it's by the skin of their teeth, they still passed the test and they got the result they wanted. You've had that happen lots of times. Maybe you went for a job interview. You were like, okay, wait, I'm in a situation where I need money. I need to pay my bills. I need to feed my kids. I need something. So you have to go for an interview, and you get ready to go for that interview, and you're nervous. On your way to the interview, the traffic is slow and you're freaking out thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to be late. Oh my gosh, I can't be late. Oh, and then all of a sudden traffic opens up and you're able to get there on time, even 10 minutes early, and you're able to get in and have the interview. And then you just wait, and you're waiting, and you're like, oh my gosh, am I going to get this job? My family's livelihood is on the line. I don't know what I'm going to do if I don't get this job. And then you get the phone call and you got the job. So you have done this several times in your life already, but you probably discount the fact that you have already overcome so many things and had so many little happy endings in your life. At some point, though, you probably started helping everybody else become the main character of their lives, which we do want to do. We want to be a supporting role in other people's lives, but you don't want to get to the point where you're not even actually pursuing anything in your own life anymore. So to become a hero and to become the main character in your own life story, a few things have to happen. And now this episode is not going to be this, full-on lesson of how to completely change your life. I just want to give you a few things to think about to see if you're actually doing these things and if you are playing the supporting role even in your own life instead of pursuing the things that you should. So it's not all encompassing, but it's just a few things for you to think about. Well, one thing is, are you a person that is a people pleaser? Do you find that you are always doing things for other people, not necessarily just because you want to, but because you want people to like you or appreciate you, or just to kind of earn good favor in people's eyes? There are lots of people pleasers, and I probably was a people pleaser when I was younger. I really had a hard time saying no to anybody. There would be even people that, a guy that I would date that I didn't actually want to date, but I would date because I had no idea how to say no. And I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and I had a really difficult time setting boundaries. It wasn't until I got much older that I learned how to say no. And that if I said no and it made somebody upset, it wasn't my problem that they were upset. We can only extend ourselves so far before it starts actually wearing us down and making it so we can't function for our own selves. So if you're a person who is people pleasing, first of all, ask yourself, why are you people pleasing? And then after you know why you're people pleasing, you've got to start setting some boundaries so that you can say no and be okay with saying no. And I will tell you that when you start saying no to people, if they're asking you to do something that you don't want to do, you start saying no. At first it's uncomfortable and you feel horrible and you probably feel sweaty and flushed and anxious and all of the things. But I'll tell you what, the more you do it, because it's for your own well-being, you get used to it, and it becomes easier to say no to the things that are not going to be good for you. and to say yes to the things that are. Now, they're still going to be helping other people. That's awesome. But you don't have to overextend yourself. So stop people pleasing, okay? The other thing is, I want you to stop trying to be quote unquote normal. There is no normal, okay? Like, society tries to make you feel like this is normal and this is abnormal. But I want you to say to yourself, like, I'm going to do what is normal for me. Here is my normal. So you get to define what your version of normal is. And then you run with it, embrace it, and go. It doesn't have to compare or look good to anybody else. It just has to be what is normal for you. I'm trying to think of a quick example of what is normal in my life, what I consider normal in my life. I mean, just, I guess for an example, like for me, normal in my household is that we are peaceful. There's not arguing, there's no yelling. We really don't even have any contention in our household. That is my normal. And so when I'm around situations that are very high stressed, that feels awkward to me and uncomfortable because that's not my normal. It's not the normal daily life that I live. Also, my normal daily life is very quiet. We don't have little kids in our house, so, everything is just pretty peaceful. I work when I feel like working, and I do fun stuff when I feel like doing fun stuff. Like, I am very fortunate to have that kind of lifestyle right now. That's my normal. But every once in a while, I want to shake stuff up. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm getting a little too complacent, and I need to maybe set some different goals in my life so that I have something to pursue daily. So, define what your version of normal is and run with it. It's not normal for me to try to, move myself up some corporate ladder. That's not anything on my radar. That's not normal for me. It may be normal for some people, and that is perfectly great. So define your normal and run with it. The other thing that you'll want to do to become the hero in your own life is to stop trying to be perfect. The whole thing that I was saying about the movie is that it's messy. The character at the beginning has a desire for something, but they don't just go from having the desire to having the outcome. In between is all kinds of messy, right? It never looks pretty. There's always obstacles. There's always things they have to overcome. And those things build character in the person. They build strength. They build courage. They're the things that help you to grow as a person and just become wiser. So don't look for everything to just work out perfectly, and don't try to make everything perfect. Things get better with time, always. And the conflict that comes up in our lives, though it sometimes feels really uncomfortable, is actually really necessary for our growth and also to help us to try to keep things from being perfect. My husband always said, like, we can never buy new vehicles because that first time you get a scratch on your new vehicle, it's devastating, right? You're like, oh no, or you buy the new furniture and then somebody spills something all over it and you're like, it's so painful when something like that happens. So to prevent that, we just don't buy anything new. And that way, when it gets a scratch or a scrape or, a rip in the upholstery or whatever, we're just like, okay, no big deal. It wasn't new. It's fine. So that's the way we deal with it. But trying to be perfect as a person, trying to have a perfect life, it just doesn't exist. So just embrace what, the parts of life that are just not perfect. Embrace it and learn from it and grow from it. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is that you just want to be accepting yourself as you are. Now, there is always going to be areas of growth in our lives. We're always going to change and evolve as we get older. Obviously, none of us think now the same way we did when we were 7, right? You grow, you experience life, things happen, and you just have to be okay with who you are as a person and not compare yourself to other people. These difficult moments in our lives will strengthen who we are, and accepting that you're the person that you are in this space of time is just going to bring you that sense of peace over your life, so that you're not, but it also, you can accept where you are now, but be open to continuing to grow. So to be the hero of your own story, imagine your life as a movie. Imagine that everything is not going to go perfectly. You're going to come across conflict, but you're also going to overcome those areas of conflict and be the winner. And now sometimes things are not going to work all the way that you wanted them to. Sometimes you're not going to get that job that you wanted, and you're going to have to reapply for another job. But that's just part of the conflict that, first of all, makes life interesting and also strengthens us and builds up courage and wisdom and bravery in our own lives. So I am curious, and I would love to hear from you on how you plan to show up as the main character in your life. Where are you now, and where do you want to be? What are some things that you have already overcome that you have kind of discounted because you've moved on to the next conflict in your life? Take a little time and reflect on that, because you already have overcome some things. And ask yourself, am I becoming more of a supporting role in my own life as I'm supporting others? If so, here's a reminder of the 4 things that I spoke about. Stop people pleasing. Stop trying to be normal and just create your own normal and be okay with it. Don't try to be perfect. Nothing is perfect. Just keep pursuing, making progress. And then accept who you are. Be okay with you. And imagine that if no one else were around you, imagine you're just one person planted on an island and you had no one else to compare yourself to. Would you be okay with who you are right now? All right, well, that is it for this week. And one last thing, we are at the tail end of our Proverbs 31 Day Challenge. And if you haven't joined us, feel free to join us. There are still a few days left, so make sure you jump in. Just read the chapter that corresponds to the day of the month that you're listening to this. And it's one of those challenges that you can do every single month. If the month has 30 days, read an extra proverb on one of the days of the last day of the month. And then you should be good. But man, there are so many amazing things that I've learned just over this past month. And I hope that you have too if you've been participating. If you haven't liked our Facebook page, head on over to Faithing Your Fears podcast on Facebook. Make sure you like it and leave a comment or a review if you are enjoying listening to this podcast. And also on your favorite podcast app. If you're enjoying this, leave a review there, and that way maybe more people will find it if you think it will benefit them. All right, have an amazing week, and I will see you next time.